You know, historians talk and write about the fall of empires, but in my senior year in high school and in my favorite history class, we witnessed something just as dramatic. And it was just a few years earlier that Neil Sedaka, in his song, well, he wrote this: breaking up is so very hard to do. Allow me to elaborate on senior moments. Well, hi, guys. It's Tommy Ellison, and it's Senior Moments. Sunday night, we're live at 5, and we thank you for, I thank you for joining in on episode number 47. And this is, well, I guess there's a title here. It's I forgot what it was, though. We'll come back to that later. You know, a lot of times when I do these senior moment episodes, they get triggered by certain things. And just recently, my wife and I, Sandra, she and I have discovered this really neat place to eat called the Tannehill Grill. It's out here in the McCalla area where we live. And oddly enough, it's actually contained inside of a Shell station here on Eastern Valley Road. And you think to yourself, well, wow, that doesn't sound very appetizing. But believe it or not, they have a really good meat and three every night of the week, and I think probably even during lunch. And well, we love the fare that they have there. And I got to thinking the other day in going down to that place and talking to the folks that work there about, you know, restaurants that I've enjoyed eating at over time. And essentially, there's a lot of them that I enjoy eat, as you can tell from looking at my frame. But, you know, even local restaurants, many of you remember the old Carnaggio's in Midfield, and what a wonderful place that was. But there was another one that was over in the Inslee area that was always a favorite of mine. My parents always took me there, it seemed like, on a Friday night, and that was Inslee Grill. You may not remember that. It was a pretty good spot, and it was kind of what we call a meat and three, you know, a steam table line. And there are a lot of famous steam tables around Birmingham, including Nicky's West and the Old John's downtown. And anyway, but this particular memory that I have serving up for you tonight is about, you see what I did there, serving up. Anyway, in Inslee, there was a place called the Catfish King. Do y'all remember that? I know not everybody ate there, but the one in Inslee was kind of an unusual place because it was in an old theater, the old Inslee Theater. I think that was the name of the original theater. And so when you walked into the place and you got a table, there was a big dining room that essentially was where the seating was located in the old theater. And of course, the stage area and all where the screen was had been partitioned off, and that's where the kitchen and the service areas were. But when you walked in the place and you sat down, because it was an old theater, there was a certain kind of a pitch to the floor. So when you sat in the Inslee Grill or the Catfish King, you kind of sat on an angle because the chairs weren't, you know, cut off to compensate for the angle that you're sitting on. But nevertheless, it was kind of something that was memorable. Well, a couple of things for that sloped floor. And it was one of the, I guess, earliest places that I ran into where it was all you can eat. And I'm sure many people know about all you can eat restaurants. In fact, my only visit to this place that I'm talking about was with my good buddy Robert Gant, who I grew up with there in Fairfield. And Robert and myself, and I think there were some others with us. It might have been after a Sunday night church service or a youth rally or whatever. We went to it, and they told us it was all you could eat night, catfish night. And Robert was one of those guys that could just eat circles around all of us and yet never seemed to gain an ounce. And anyway, they kind of saw us at the table, and we said, hey, it's all you can eat for, $5, whatever that charge was. And of course, we kept asking them to bring more. And, finally the manager came and looked at Robert and said, I'm sorry, sir, but that's all you can eat. So he kind of cut us off. But that was my one and only visit that I recall. But in telling you all this, I kind of had a flashback to my senior history class there at Fairfield. And our teacher's name was Nadine Sexton. And Miss Sexton told us the story one day about Sunday night was her favorite night to go to Catfish King and to get the catfish and the hush puppies there. And, she just went on and on about how great it was to go to Catfish King in Inslee and get the catfish and the hush puppies. Well, kind of in keeping with the story, the class that I was in, we had a young black guy that was there at the high school with us, and if I remember, his name was Duck. I want to say it was Duck Boykin, and I'm not changing the names to protect the guilty or the innocent here, but that was his name. And he was one of about, 20 or 30 black students that was attending Fairfield High. Now remember, this is 1968, 1969. And so there was still a lot of stuff going on in the school world. But anyway, Duck proceeded to tell Miss Sexton there in the class that he worked at the Catfish King in Inslee. And she made a comment about, she just loved to go there on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night and eat at the Catfish King. And that was when Duck said to her, wow, that's a great night to eat there because we changed the grease on Saturday night. And old Nadine's expression was just classic because I guess she realized that, not every restaurant changes the cooking oil that they deep fry the fish and the hush puppies and the French fries in, but maybe periodically. And if they're only changing it once a week at the Catfish King, she was going to give some second thought to maybe where she chose to eat. And that was when we kind of started behind her back calling her the Catfish Queen. And that day in senior history class, we witnessed a historic event. We think it was the abdication of the Catfish Queen. And just like Neil Sedaka told us, he said, breaking up is so very hard to do because I don't think she ever went back there. No, I don't think so. Hey, we've got a visitor here. Let's see who we have here on the screen here. Susan Holloway is tuning in. And thank you, Susan. Appreciate you watching the show tonight. This is kind of a short evening, a short podcast, because this isn't a very long story. But it's amazing to me sometimes how, your situations can change in a heartbeat based on new information. So anyway, with all that said, I look forward to seeing you next week on Senior Moments. This could qualify as a YouTube short, maybe. I'm not sure how long we've been on, about 10 minutes. Well, anyway. Well, we'll see you next week on Senior Moment. And now, just a word from our writers, our cameraman, our director, And last but not least, our own camera. Can we edit that out? No. Okay. Our own camera talent, if you want to call this talent. So, and by the way, those are all just me, the one-man show here. So anyway, I hope you have a good Sunday evening. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you will join us next week on Senior Moments, the evidence of a misspent youth. Well, hey, thanks for spending a few minutes with me on Senior Moments. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure and tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. I'll be back soon with more stories from a misspent youth, and maybe some of yours too.